You're listening to Conversations with Loulou. My guest today is Nadim Samara, CEO of the Omnicom Media Group, or OMG, for the MENA region. Their clients include brands like Jumeirah Group, Do, Pepsi, Nissan, and the list goes on. Nadim is a childhood friend, and he was gracious enough to be one of the first guests a few months ago, just before the measures to contain the spread of the coronavirus took over. I remember talking to him about retirement, and he told me he hopes to become a teacher someday, perhaps inspired by his own mother.
She was an Arabic teacher. And
how's your Arabic?
Terrible. Terrible. It's good in slang, but it's not good in professional Arabic. But I think that's one of the disappointments probably from her side. But look, it was she's relatively strict, but she was very flexible in our upbringing. Like how we actually, whether we went to sports or went to scouts or we did skiing or whatever it was, there was an investment from her side in terms of the emotion, the financial, obviously, but it was always also about the fun aspect, the growth. And I think that's the mentality that was important. Any teacher wants their student to grow. I think that's the thing I can pull out from this experience. It's the growth mentality. But again, Arabic is unless you study it with a full heart, it's a bit of a tough language.
I think we should start with the interesting stories. Let's talk a little bit about your adventures.
Well, more recently, the company that I work for, Omnicom Media Group, came up with this challenge every 12 to 18 months where we'd select a group of folks, right, a group of people, around 25 of us, that would partner up with Gulf for Goods, and we would look into raising funds for, mainly we focus on children in need, orphanages, education. And the bug kind of bit in terms of getting into remote areas, challenging ourselves physically and mentally. And it started in September 2014 when 25 of us attempted to climb Kilimanjaro, the highest peak in Africa.
Wow.
In fact, when you're climbing high up, my right foot became known as don't, and my left foot became known as stop. So every time I took 2 steps, it'd be don't stop. Because it's a 60% of in my opinion, 60% of this effort is mental. So you have to have the mental strength to pursue it. So this whole expedition bug bit us. We're sitting around a dining room table and we're having a bite, all of us together, a bunch of friends close friends of mine and I. And one of them throws out this whole idea of, let's ski the last degree, which is basically some folks fly you in a helicopter, drop you in at 89-degree parallel, and then you put on cross-country skis and you drag behind you a sled with your tent and stuff for an Arctic expedition of around 8 to 12 days. And then you ski that last degree between 89 and 90. And 90 is obviously the true North Pole. And with global warming happening, who knows how long the ice pack will actually still exist. So I'd like to be one of the few people that actually stood on the North Pole. And I think it's not only just a nice story to say, it's also inspiration to my children. It's also a physical challenge, to make sure that I'm as fit as possible, despite my love for food. And obviously the mental strength that comes with it, the routine of setting up a tent every day, bringing it down in the morning, making sure you don't do any stupid mistakes like having some of your breath come on your zippers, because then it'll freeze, because the temperature is between -5 inside the tent to -20, -30, even -40 if there's a lot of wind. So making sure your muscles are well taken care of for 8 to 12 days. It becomes very monotonous to a point of enjoyment.
So you said that it all started with a group of friends and you sitting around the table. I'm assuming these friends are colleagues.
Yeah, I mean, most of us are colleagues or ex-colleagues, but you need to be really intimate with someone and really close. I mean, it's a partnership. If you're sharing a very small space for 8 to 12 days, in conditions where you can't just go to the guest bedroom or to the next hotel room or to another town.
Very true. Obviously, not a lot of companies do that. Sometimes corporates might do corporate retreats where they kind of drag everyone somewhere. This seems so organic, kind of like a bottom-up approach in a way.
Yeah.
So why is that important? Do you think, like to you and also to the company?
I think again it comes down from the DNA of the company and the values that are enlisted in our culture, and it's, in my opinion, if you have sweat equity with the person next to you, with your peer, with your colleague, then you have a responsibility to make sure that you're delivering the best you can, the best product, the best service.
And we're talking literally sweat now.
Literally,
okay.
Literally, both inside the office sometimes, but most notoriously climbing mountains and skiing across an Arctic float. You know, I started in this company in Jeddah 17 and a half years ago. So it's kind of ingrained in my mind that we're one family, we pursue one goal, and you kind of have to perform together. Take those words, one family, one goal, pursue it together, and it applies to climbing a mountain, it applies to crossing an Arctic float. And I think that's important for us to figure out how a company can perform better. And it reflects back to certain numbers in the company. You know, the majority of our team and the leadership team has been in the company north of 12 years. This is a 18-year company. So that's a big number.
That's
right?
Excellent.
In an industry where churn is huge, average age has now risen from around 27 and a half, 28 back 3-4 years ago to around 32, 33. And that's only because of the fact that people stay. So it's not about the influx of the young folks. It's about this steady and strong and stable leadership that has been with the company since 2002.
Which now you took over
Yes.
recently, so congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. It's an amazing achievement when I think about it. You're 41 years old, you're a father, you're an adventurer, you're a leader. What kind of message do you think it sends to the new recruits into OMG? Because you know when you're young and you look at someone who's 41 years old and he's a CEO, is that important for you?
It's less about how do we get to this position. It's more about the journey, right? And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it literally is the journey. Because if it wasn't for me having the support at home with my spouse, the support at the office with my mentors, and most recently Eli being my direct mentor, but there have been mentors in the past in the Saudi office, and when I was in New York for 6 years, I had the luxury of having some great mentors, also some terrible ones that taught me what not to do. So you obviously draw from the ones that have coached you correctly. So yes, I think it's more of a message to the folks that are entering the company about the fact that this is a journey and not a destination. I'll tell you what, I think the combination of perseverance, and I don't want to use the word hard work, because I think smart work is better than hard work at some point in time, but perseverance and kind of, you know, taking tough decisions, being opportunistic. You know, when I was 28, I moved to New York. It wasn't an easy decision, but I believe it was the right decision. And what I gained there, I lost some stuff from being, I lost some experience from being in the GCC in the Middle East and North Africa, but I gained a new perspective by being in North America. And I think that gave me a bit of an edge. Also, I had access to a great university where I pursued my executive MBA.
Was that a contributing factor in who you are today? Like, would you advise people to kind of seek these types of executive education for their progress?
Look, I mean, it doesn't hurt if you know what you're trying to achieve, right? I think if you're doing it because you want to put an A4 thick paper behind your desk as a bit of a prize, then I think those days are gone, right? It's not a stamp of approval. But the most important thing, in my opinion, isn't to seek education for the sake of education, but to seek education for the sake of application. And I think that's very important. So when I did my my business school experience, it was during working time. So I did this every other weekend, where I was able to apply throughout these fortnights whatever I learned in 2 days, which was pretty cool. But yeah, I think there's two good answers in my opinion, and one bad answer. One bad answer is the more degrees the better. I think that ethos has evaporated. But the two good answers is, first of all, pursue something you love. And the second piece of advice is, I think it's best to also pursue a progressive education system, because the majority of folks we meet today and we interview and we recruit, they graduate from institutions that may not have set them up for the best future success. That doesn't mean that, that we have to break down the whole institutions of education, but which is a topic that's being challenged worldwide. But it's something that we should be, much more assertive of how and where we put our investments as parents, as educators, and as students.
I think as several reports talk about the skills gap, right? So there's a lot of people graduating and are unemployed, but there's also a lot of companies that are unable to hire the skills that they're looking for, which is interesting. So there is a mismatch somewhere between what's out there and what's really in demand. But when it comes to hiring, right? I mean, obviously, how many people work at the group now today?
So we're slightly north of 800 across Middle East and North Africa.
So when it comes to hiring, from your perspective as an employer, what do you look for in new entrants?
Well, we're definitely not looking at degrees only. I think that's a red herring that companies have fallen into the trap. We look for personalities. The old adage of recruit for attitude and teach aptitude after you recruit someone is something we apply. So the majority of our recruits are entry level for two reasons. As I mentioned before, we have a very strong retention figure in terms of percentage. So folks that come in stay with us in the majority of the sense. And the second thing is, I was brought up in an environment, and I'm a true believer in not getting someone senior from outside that would suppress the ambitions of the folks you've been building up and teaching. Now, sometimes it's a necessity, right? Sometimes you win a massive account, your skill sets don't exist, and you have to bring in a general manager. Those are necessary evil decisions you have to take. And you have to have those bold decisions sometimes. When I interview someone after the fact, so after they've been recruited by the agency leads nowadays or the discipline leads, I look for three things. I look for integrity first and foremost. I think that's something that we sometimes take for granted, and sometimes folks don't understand how important it is. And it doesn't mean in terms of integrity, in terms of audit proof, but in terms of how does that person compose themselves in tough environment. I think positive is the second thing I look at. So someone who gets punched left, right, and center, but always has a smile on their face to move forward. I think we have to remind ourselves we're in a service industry, despite the technology pressures around us, and AI and ML and automation and all the other acronyms that are coming our way. Ultimately, we're a human industry that deals with humans. And the third, but not the last thing, is resilience. We're a very cool industry. We're a very fun industry. We help build brands. We connect people to brands that they will have a love relationship with or a hate relationship with. Our job is to make sure that it's the former, not the latter. But resilience is very important, right? And I think getting a brief at 6:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday, there are folks that will react positively to it, will be resilient, and will treat it with integrity in terms of performance and quality. And there are folks that won't. And we want to kind of hire the folks that will.
You mentioned a word which has been thrown around a lot these days, which is intrapreneurship. How can you apply it in a big company, in an established company? Because I can see it obviously in startups, it's very easy. I can see it maybe in smaller companies to some degree, but I mean, you have something that's been running since, you said 2002. So you're set in your ways, there are probably things are done in a specific way. So how can you be intrapreneurial?
Good question. And I agree with you. I think we're 17, 18 years old, so we're actually a teenager of a company, and we know that 17, 18-year-olds can either be they're pivoting, they either be troublesome or successful. So we're definitely in that pivotal area. Now, when we started, we were around 25 people. It was very organic for us to come up with solutions, macros on Excel, package it up, and there we have a sophisticated tool compared to the market. The competitive advantage was available, the competitive advantage was available. Today, you need to make sure that you have a system behind it for 800 people, and that system has lots of small tactics. So we've created something small last year called OMD Underground, where, as it says, it's kind of like a reverse mentorship, where we identified 5 folks under the manager level, or at manager level rather, who we knew were brilliant. But instead of them getting stuck into the day-to-day, we pulled them out and we said, great, here's 30 minutes with your CEO, sit down with this individual and tell me what your passion point is about this business.
So let's shift the conversation a little bit and talk a little bit about the industry. So there's a lot of debate, obviously, about the viability of the model on the longer term, especially with the big players and the digital aggregators basically that are controlling a big chunk of the market. Would you say that it's an industry under disruption or under transformation?
Our industry changes weekly, and I love that. And I think that's the piece that keeps me excited and wakes me up in the morning to go to work and to make sure that we create the best solutions possible. Every technology that comes around will affect us. AR, VR, any other acronym you have out there, eventually will impact advertising, eventually will impact audiences, eventually will impact transactions between consumers and brands. And businesses, whether private or public, right, will always need people to open up the wallet and swipe their credit card or tap their phone or hand over cash. And that, for me, is what makes us in a constant transformation.
Where do you think is the biggest value? Is it, who is your client, let's say? Is it the large companies, or is there an interest on your behalf to start sort of working with the smaller SMEs, the startups?
Well, historically this industry has been built on building big brands, right? So if you've watched Mad Men, that's basically our heritage,
okay.
With the good and the bad. But more recently, and specifically from an OMG perspective, we've been very acute to making sure that we diversify who our customers are, who our partners are as well, because it's on both sides of the equation, and we've been very successful, and we're very proud of actually launching brands that have started from zero.
So the focus, obviously, at least for the short term or the medium term, is still going to be on the big, the big players, the big brands that are looking to expand their footprint, basically.
Yeah, I think. Look, I'll give you the most direct answer. We're built in a way. The industry, the structure of this industry has been built in a way where there's either money going direct to publishers nowadays, or big brands that need to outsource the specialization and the knowledge going to the agency holding companies, whether it's creative or media or otherwise. But I think that's changing. Despite the data and technology, it's a human industry. Intuitive decision making is still very valid. Understanding how to merge disparate databases into one is an advantage that an agency today has and will continue to have until, I don't know, maybe Google, Amazon, and Facebook have a database between the three of them. That's not going to happen. So today, if a brand or a client wants to make sure that they're getting the most objective point of view, then they should set up a remuneration system that's exactly built on performance to the agency, and they should be briefing the agency on the exact business outcome that's needed.
Is that how you work now, or is that something that you see more clients demanding, like more accountability on the part of the agency?
We're shifting there.
Okay.
If I were to tell you that the majority is there, I'd be lying, and I won't say that. But I'll tell you that there are some bold leaders, bold partners as well, who are taking decisions that are much more finite. I use this analogy of bridging. So today, I want to see shorter bridges made out of concrete rather than longer bridges made out of bamboo.
Okay.
And in the past, you'd advertise, hope for someone to see it, hope for someone to remember it, and then ultimately go to the market as a retailer, let's say, and hopefully go to that shelf for that brand. Those are lots of bamboo bridges that are pretty long. Nowadays, the data has allowed us to make sure that we're segregating the audiences correctly, have immediate transaction on the platform that we're able to advertise on, and immediately make sure that the product is made available or the brand is made a transaction with that consumer.
So the landscape is shifting slightly, right? Digital is becoming a very big channel for most brands. Traditional channels are shrinking, print, TV as well. So it's a matter of time, I think, until maybe new channels are going to be there, or these existing channels keep eating up a bigger share, let's say, of the pie. Again, how do you reinvent yourself as an agency?
Yeah, very good question. So again, I think let's take a step back in terms of spending. I want to say that half of the investments go towards digital. Now that said, we also need to be conscious about how we term TV and how we term digital, right? So video exists whether it's done through the cable or done through the Ethernet or internet or Wi-Fi or 3G or 5G nowadays. So we want to also make sure that's a content-driven dissection of the industry and not a distribution-driven dissection of the industry.
Okay.
Now, obviously, we have in this region, we're pretty strong on outdoor still. TV still has its equity. There's a lot of research that allows us to connect TV to performance on social and performance on digital, which we've pioneered with partners of ours here. So it's a much more convoluted response than maybe 4 years ago, where 4 years ago you'd say, great, TV is kind of standing still and digital is picking up. Today it's much more convoluted. And again, another cliche that's being used in this industry is omni-channel, to making sure that the consumer, wherever they turn, is a seamless experience of the brand's communication. How do we solve for it, and how do we foresee things? First and foremost, it's the structure at the company, right? So we've been able to diversify our skill sets in the past 6-7 years. We've been able to create new revenue streams, both for the company, but also for the clients. Ultimately, we've set up e-commerce entity within Omnicom Media Group. We've set up a creative entity that's focused mainly on rapid response management for social media, for dynamic creative optimization and technology that has helped us to gain double-digit enhancements on the same creative that's produced in a nanosecond based on the audience it's sending out to, individualized, making sure that the data that we have is harmonized together on a DMP that is a data management platform that is referenced every time we go to market. And this precision marketing mentality can't be operated by the same recruit you used to recruit 25 years ago.
I could tell that you keep a very kind of tight ship when it comes to culture. I could see that this is very important, but are there any key strategies that you recommend or that you use as a leader that sort of keeps you afloat and helps you have more vision or more foresight into the future and keep growing?
I'm definitely doing two things all the time. First thing is I always keep my ear to the ground. I usually meet 3 or 4 external parties, let's use those terms, whether they're partners or clients or affiliates, every day. And that allows me to ask questions, to sense what's going on. And we're lucky enough to have clients in every single sector. So in a week, I can have a very strong understanding of what the barometer is looking like across the economy. Point two is, while your ear is on the ground, make sure your eyes are really, really, really far ahead, right? So it's all about vision over visibility. I think we're all concerned about visibility into the next quarter. I'm concerned about the vision into next year. And I think for me, what I'm hearing nowadays in terms of what makes sense in the coming year or two, clients want outcomes that make sense. And it's not about the price only. It's not about the service quality only. It's about the bouquet. And this is graduating from the procurement era of 3-4 years ago, where it's all about price. And I think brands realized that, great, they were paying the cheapest available, but they weren't performing the best available.
You mentioned when we were having a chat at the beginning that you're always prepared. Where does that come from? And is there something particular in your childhood that you think prepared you to where you are today?
I was in the Scouts for 18 years, and the mentality with Scouts, back in the 80s, it was for fun, right? You'd go out, you'd go hiking, you'd go camping, bonfires, and it was all fun. But eventually, it became some sort of a habit, right? And the motto for Scouts is be prepared. So you always have that mentality, So I'm whenever I travel, my backpack, I travel with a backpack. I don't travel with a briefcase because I think that's not practical. I'd like to have both hands available for passports and boarding passes and phones and stuff like that. But I always have a T-shirt in my backpack in case I get stranded in some airport, and it weighs probably 400 grams or 300 grams. But it's not about that. It's about the fact that mentally you're being prepared. It reflects very much equally to business, right? So when you enter in a meeting, the brasher part of me, when I was younger in this industry, I'd be the first person to speak. I'd be the first person to give an opinion. I'd set the tone. And I think nowadays, with a bit more maturity and a bit more experience, I've understood that being prepared doesn't mean being the first to speak, but being the person who's able to either collate different opinions, instigate more discussion, but ultimately bring everybody into the right decision-making process. And I think you need to have enough baggage, whether it's emotional baggage, mental baggage, or actually physical baggage, to be able to actually last 9 hours of a day in advertising is not physically easy. There are folks that take smoke breaks every 2 hours. There are folks that rely on chocolate, like I do sometimes, and there are folks that do yoga in the morning and afternoon. So again, it's the physical, mental, and emotional preparedness that's important for you to be successful, in my opinion.
Okay, and you're a father now.
Yes.
You're a father of 3.
Yeah.
Which is quite the task.
Yes.
So what kind of lessons do you draw from your mother, from maybe things you've learned along the way from your career that you kind of apply at home? Are there any lessons or any
Patience.
Tactics?
Patience. I have no idea how parents are as patient as they should be, and I don't know where I'm digging in for my patience sometime. And then sleep. Just any opportunity I have to sleep, I sleep. Planes, cars, couches. With 3 kids ranging from the ages of 7 to 1, it's a handful. But look, the 2 things that I think my kids have taught me was the unconditional love that they get. You have
that they give
that they give me back. Yeah. So it's not. So when you're in a relationship with your spouse, there is unconditional love, right? But it's not at the same level with your children. And I say this with all confidence, having had this discussion with my spouse and her concurring as well. And I think the second thing that
I think not many spouses would say that the love is unconditional, but good.
We'll keep it at that. But I think the second thing that they've taught me is how fast they can learn something, and how stupid would I be if I'm not willing to learn something new. And I think I'm dumbfounded how fast they pick up something, whether it's spelling a new word, or reading a different level of book, or knowing what sort of stone is under them when we go hiking in the mountains here in the UAE. Whatever it is, their aspect of speed to learning, curiosity, is inspirational. And I think we sometimes forget it, forget
to be kids.
Yeah, we forget to be kids. Yeah. I think that's a very good word.
How do you feel about their future? I mean, are you optimistic about, how what do you think is going to happen in the next 20 years from a career standpoint, from a leadership standpoint? I mean,
yeah, if I knew the answer, I'd be probably retired someplace. Look, the turmoil that this world is going through today is probably the most it's been through, not only because of the biggest population on earth or the fastest rate of whatever that's happening in the world, but it's also because of the communication. It's because of, again, going back to technology and platforms that are making everything visible. I mean, we know here in Dubai if there's a cat stuck in Missouri in some tree, right? Before, it used to be whether or not you're in that exact town, whether that cat is stuck in that tree or not. So that breaking down of borders is making us think that this world is much worse than it used to be. So I'm a bit more optimistic than others.
Good.
But I'm also not naive. And I do believe that my 3 kids have to work their tail off to make sure that they cut their own slack, that they're brought up as much as possible in an environment where they're positive, they have full integrity, and they're resilient to make sure that they're able to perform moving forward. And I don't want to sound like a father that manages his kids in the same way that he manages his company. And I do treat the company as my own company, otherwise I think we'd fail. But I do treat my kids in a way that I think I'm setting them up to be the best they can be, the happiest they can be, which I think is a very important metric that none of us look at. And more importantly, good people, right? I think that's what's missing around the world. But good people doesn't mean that you get stomped on, doesn't mean you get bullied on. And I think today what they've gone through, what they will be going through in school and in high school is a much thicker, necessitates a much thicker set of skin and mental strength than we had 25, 15 years ago, or whatever it was. And I think that's something that we need to be a bit more conscious about.
Nadeem, you're very big on life. I know you personally. You love the outdoors. You're very experimental. Let's put it this way. You love your work. You love your family. Do you? I mean, you have a lot of hobbies. Maybe you can mention some of them. Obviously, your love of cars and building cars.
Infamous.
Do you think that's important today? To have that sort of balance. I mean, I'm pretty sure you have a very demanding job. So, and many of us would probably fall into the trap of finding excuses. So how do you carve the time, or is it so important that you make sure that you have that you keep that time locked for certain activities?
My biggest hobby per se is off-road cars, and I think that came to me when I was 15 years old, and a friend of mine in town had a beautiful 4x4 that took him to places that were gorgeous, right? Beautiful sunsets, beautiful vistas, great places to camp, rivers in the beautiful mountains of Lebanon. And that kind of hit 2 birds with 1 stone. The mechanical aspect, which is something I love, and how things work, and gears that grind, and the science behind that, and then obviously the great outdoors. So that has been building for the past 25 years plus. Some call it an obsession. That could be a good term to use it, but it's very important. I mean, I read an article maybe a couple of months ago that said if you don't have a hobby, pick up one. And I read it on purpose because I wanted to justify my actions to my spouse.
Yeah.
I want to tell my wife,
your expenditures on off-roading.
Not only financial expenditure, but also mental expenditure and emotional.
Time commitment.
And emotional and time commitment, obviously. It's a very well authored article about how having a hobby will allow you to kind of escape your brain. And it's like the experiences today. So we're in an economy where goods still have a value, right? But it's not about the goods economy, it's about the experience economy. Well, I've had my own experience for 25 years. And that's an escapism that has allowed me to either reset my brain, reset my emotions, set a goal for myself, right? And then zone out. I mean, maintaining my motorcycle every month for 2-3 hours, whether it's lubing up the chain or making sure the tires are the right pressure, with my AirPods on and having a good playlist on my iTunes, is a gorgeous experience. It's like people painting or people cycling or other things. So I think it's very important to have that hobby. if you're able to do it and share it with people you love, even better. So I've been able to transform, again, to use that term, my hobby from being just me, myself, and I with my machine to friends, and now to my kids. So we go camping much regularly now that the kids are older enough, and they love it. You know, I mean, obviously they're probably going there for the s'mores in the evening, which are very tasty, but it's also for the experience, and I think that's also something that I'm able to share with them.
Going back to business now, today is the age of personal brands. You see a lot of people. I mean, it's so easy today to actually build a brand, which is amazing. What do you think is going to happen next after this? If you're a company that works with OMD and you want to try to predict like the next 5 years, do you see any kind of trends?
We see a lot of trends. We see a lot of technological trends that will kind of converge all towards even more convenience. I think the convenience of ordering something and waiting a day or two for it to be delivered is going to be a thing of the past.
That's already almost a thing of the past.
Yes, I mean, if it's stocked in the country, yes, but most items that you want sometimes are not stocked in the market, the right size, the right color, the right volume, right? So I think today convenience is going to go on a huge growth spurt in terms of convergence of all these technology into convenience. And I think the biggest one that's going to lead to that is audio. We forget that the majority of the world doesn't live on English, French, and other established languages. Even spelling something in Arabic that's a multinational brand is tough for this region. But saying it out loud to your phone and managing audio with all these different devices by different companies at your home will allow you to have access to things much faster.
So the speech recognition.
The speech recognition is going to be something that's going to be much more technologically advanced, and audio as an overall piece will be much smarter. So moving forward, you need to have an audio-enabled mentality, and I think that's going to lead all towards convenience. And I think the world of value has been established. Today, most folks, I think 62% of folks, based on the last research, will only purchase at discount. Right, and I think that's a big statement. So the world of value has been established. The world of convenience is yet to be established, and I think that's the next big thing.
Very interesting. So I'm gonna ask you 10 questions.
Sure.
And you're gonna give me a one-word answer.
Sure.
Okay. Very, very unprompted.
Okay.
So what's your favorite car?
Land Rover Defender.
Oh wow. Okay, I thought you were gonna say something else.
Yeah.
What's your favorite animal?
Polar bear.
What's the best cuisine?
Lebanese.
What makes you anxious?
What makes me anxious? Conformity.
What motivates you?
Fun.
What's best pastime activity?
Tajji. I'll have to explain that though.
You have to explain that. What's tajji?
Tajji is a game we used to play in Brumana High School, where I was brought up. That's a combination of tennis, soccer, in a confined field. And the 43 other people listening to this that know what I'm saying will be smiling, and the other millions of people will be probably confused.
Okay, so it's a sport.
It's a sport.
Okay. What's your favorite book?
The Goal.
Okay. What's your favorite movie?
Star Wars.
Oh, okay. That I knew.
Any of them.
That I knew. What is something you regret?
I regret not taking seriously how to be fit. So to be fit, physically fit.
And what's something you love?
Food. Which goes with the first question, the previous question.
Okay, thanks Nadim. Cool. I think that's a wrap for us.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks for your time. I had a fantastic time.
Likewise.
Great insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear your feedback. You can support the show by subscribing for free and leaving us a review on any of the platforms. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.